All right. Well, just getting started here, everybody. My name's Grant Otten. I am the media relations specialist here at Nebraska Public Power District. And um, with me, obviously, is Tom Kent, our president and CEO. Before we get started here, just a couple housekeeping things. If you can, make sure your mic is muted. That would be up on the top right. And make sure your camera is turned off. That's going to be on the top right as well. Um, and then if you want to ask a question, we will have a question. We'll have some time for some questions at the end, I think. But you can also type some questions into the chat so we can kind of moderate, see those pop up throughout and get to those when we get the opportunity. Today, we're going to be talking about the summer reliability assessment and from our perspective and some information on that. And then we'll also be getting into some topics on inflation and supply chain issues that and really how we see it from our perspective again. So this is from NPPD's viewpoint. Obviously, these are some topics that are much more wide ranging than just us, but this is from our viewpoint. So Tom, I'll let you get started here, and there we go.
Terrific. Thank you, Grant. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay, see me okay. Welcome again. It's good to get a chance to talk to you all. I have a few comments. I'm going to share my screen for a bit and talk about some of what's been going on in the Southwest Power Pool. And obviously we'll leave time for questions before we're done today. I just wanted to start with the NERC summer assessment and FERC summer assessment that came out in the last couple of months. That's created a lot of media attention around the region and around the nation. Those assessments are done seasonally by NERC. Well, they'll do a summer assessment and a winter assessment, and it's really their risk assessment of the overall status of the grid and the ability to serve load. And the summer assessment that came out identified areas to the east of us and the west of us that, in NERC's estimation, had higher than normal risk of having issues if things didn't go as planned. So if there was ongoing drought where there wasn't water supply available, or loss of major transmission facilities or generation facilities for whatever reason it might be, created a higher potential risk in those areas for the ability to serve load as they looked at a forward-looking assessment. It really isn't the actual conditions necessarily, it's assessing the risk of what happens if things don't go as planned. The Southwest Power Pool region, the 14-state region that we're part of, as well as other parts of the country, were included in that assessment. They look at the entire nation when they do the assessment. And the risk in the Southwest Power Pool was elevated in their estimation, not as high as the area to the east of us or the area to the west of us, but certainly elevated. And it was, again, looking at things like persistent drought conditions impacting water flows in the Missouri River Basin that might impact hydro facilities, those kinds of things. And as the summer has kind of played out, we haven't seen some of those risks play out to date. So doesn't mean that we aren't diligently watching and preparing for those kinds of things. Certainly this week has been a very hot week across the footprint. We have been fortunate in parts of Nebraska to have seasonal rain that helps with our load. It's a little bit cooler today and overcast, still very humid, but all those things can make a pretty big difference on load. Southwest Power Pool's peak load is about 51,000 megawatts. NPPD's peak load is about 3,000 megawatts, to give you a relative difference there. They have adequate capacity available, even with the loss of units and transmission systems, to serve that load up to a certain point. If there was a major issue where multiple units were out, multiple transmission segments were out, well, then that situation's different. And all the utilities have plans in place to assess those types of situations. The Southwest Power Pool is in a state of what they refer to as conservative operations. And I'm going to share my screen here, see if we can talk about that a little bit. I'm going to pull up the Southwest Power Pool's website. Okay, so this is the Southwest Power Pool's website, has lots of good information. I just want to talk briefly about current grid conditions. And as you can see here on the page, they issued a conservative operations advisory for the entire 14-state region earlier this week, and it runs through 10 p.m. this evening. And that's basically giving notice to the operators of the transmission system and power plants like NPPD to make sure you operate your facilities in a conservative fashion to minimize risk of maintenance activities. For example, potentially impacting the reliability of the system, causing an unexpected trip of a unit. That's a risk management tool that we as utilities have used for decades. When we get in the peak times of the year, whether it's a winter or summer, we're taking precautionary steps to ensure that we're not doing unnecessary or non-critical maintenance. We do maintenance year-round in our facilities, but we certainly try and schedule that maintenance and group it into times where the risk to the system is less than it would be in a peak condition. And so conservative operations is just that notification to us in the utility business that this is the time where we need to focus on ensuring that those plants and transmission systems are running reliably and running well. And so we'll do things like scale back maintenance in those times unless it's absolutely critical to keep a plant in service or a transmission line in service. You can see on the screen in front of you kind of the range of grid conditions that the Southwest Power Pool has. Different regions will use different words, but really trying to do the same concepts. So if you're in Iowa or served by the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, their words might be different, but it's the same kind of idea. And it ranges from all the way to normal operations, very low risk, up through an emergency energy alert and energy emergency alert level 3. And then after that would be restoring the grid to normal. So conservative operations is kind of in the middle. Again, this is just a utility term that we use in the utility side of the business to make sure that we're aware of the risks and are managing the risks appropriately to keep the lights on for the consumers. When you get up into the energy emergency alert levels, that is the time where you'll start to see requests to the public to do things like conserve load, those kinds of things, and potentially ultimately at the energy emergency alert level 3, the potential for rolling blackouts, rolling brownouts, which is what we all experienced in February of 2021. Again, we're not likely to get in any of those situations, and there's no forecasts that show that potential at this point in time. This was really driven by the fact that there's going to be high temperatures and loads across the footprint during this time period, and the uncertainty in wind and renewable forecasts. On the Southwest Power Pool website, you can also see on their page, they publish kind of what's going on for load forecasts and wind forecasts. And this is what we in the utility business are managing to ensure that our generation is available to serve load. And this graph, the top line is the load forecast and what's expected. So right now the load is following very close to what's expected, maybe increasing a little faster than what's expected. And then the bottom curvy line is, again, the wind forecast and what's expected, and the wind is following very close to what's expected. But as you can see, as we proceed through the day-to-day from a planning standpoint, we are in the utility business expecting load to continue to climb. That's what it does during the day. And at the same time, we're expecting lower amounts of wind resources. So we will be relying on other types of generation to fill in the gap that's left as the wind resource comes down. So that's coal, nuclear, hydro, natural gas type resources. If you look right now across the Southwest Power Pool footprint, this is across the whole 14-state region. 42% of the energy that's being produced to serve loads coming from coal, 3% from hydro, 32% from natural gas, 5% from nuclear, and 17% from wind, and that's across the entire 14 states. If you look at where Nebraska Public Power District is right now, serving our generation, right now 28% of our total generation is coming from nuclear, 59% from coal, about 9% from natural gas, about 2% from wind, about 2% from hydro. So the wind resource relatively in our part of Nebraska is much lower than it is right now compared to the Southwest Power Pool overall. And that's really one of the advantages that we have as being part of a larger grid and a part of a larger area that balances generation and load, is you have that diversity in resource mix, you have that diversity in service requirements, and you can help each other out if the resources don't come as you expect, something trips unexpectedly. When you're trying to do that over a smaller area with a smaller number of generating units or a smaller load to spread that risk across and to manage that risk across, it's harder and more expensive and harder to ensure that balance. And I think a good example of the differences there is, even though in February of 2021, we saw some load reductions in Nebraska in response to a system emergency, it was nowhere near the level of issues that they saw in Texas, yet the weather conditions were very similar. There's a lot of reasons that go into that, but one of the reasons that made it harder in Texas than it did in Nebraska is because we are part of a much larger area that we can share the risk across. And Texas was really trying to manage it within the Texas resource mix. So again, conservative operations from a region and a utility standpoint is something that we do, something we've managed, and I expect that as long as we move through the remaining part of the summer, without any unanticipated or unexpected storms of significance or power plant losses of significance, we'll get through just fine. And from our perspective, this is a busy time of the year, a good time of the year, and this is what we're designed and set up for us to operate our systems to serve loads during peak times. Briefly, I want to talk about supply chain issues. We hear that a lot nationally, and it's certainly impacting our industry. We are seeing, just like any other business, impacts on supply chain and the ability to get needed resources. We do plan ahead and have materials set aside and reserved for emergencies. And this spring is a good example where we've had several storms come through the state. Spring is a very active storm season in Nebraska, as can the winter be. And so we typically see damage to our system from tornadoes, high winds, et cetera, that we have to repair. And we've had several cases of that this spring. We were able to get all those facilities repaired expeditiously and in service because we had stocks available and set aside, what we call storm stock or emergency supplies. Now those stocks, they've gone, the reserves have decreased. And so we certainly are watching and working and monitoring the time it's going to take to get those supplies restocked in our system. And the supply chain is congested right now. So to get resupplies right now is taking longer. The cost to get materials is higher than it has been traditionally. But again, it's part of what we manage. And one of the things that we've done this year, we saw this coming even a year ago as we were planning for power plant maintenance outages, started working very closely with our customers, put special teams together to focus on ensuring we had the materials we needed with enough time so that we could do the work we needed. And we're sharing information with our customers. So if one of our customers is short or one of our peers in Nebraska is short materials and we have those materials, we can help each other out. So that's how we're managing it. That's how businesses across the spectrum typically manage it. I would say in the case of utilities, one of the areas that we are monitoring really closely is transformers and getting transformers to support other activities in the community. So like if there's housing being built, new subdivisions being built, providing electrical services, a key piece of that. And so working with the developers to ensure that everyone understands the timeline of getting all the pieces. And those developers are dealing with their own supply chain issues, getting lumber, steel, those kinds of things as well. Certainly part of that story with supply chain is what we're seeing in inflationary pressures across the nation, quite frankly. And we account for that and look at those types of issues in terms of future costs as we forecast what we need for rates in the future. And Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty about future prices, but we are in a really good position financially working with our customers. We've held our rates stable on the retail side of our business for the last 9 years, on the wholesale side of our business for the last 5 years. We're currently running with about a $30 million surplus this year, mainly because we're able to make additional margins in our sales into the market. Our units are very competitive and asked to run in the market, and with these high market prices that we've been seeing, our units are bringing back money to help keep our rates low for our customers and use to improve our system and ensure that we maintain low, stable rates for our customers. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
So if you got a question, go ahead. You can either type it into the chat or feel free to come off mute now if you have something you'd like to ask. Maybe it'll be a quiet bunch for you.
Well, this is good. I do want to thank you all again for taking the time to join us for a few minutes this morning and at least get some perspective on kind of what's going on. And things are going good. We are in the middle of summer, as I mentioned. So we are doing what we do every year during the peak part of the season and make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our units running reliably to serve the people of Nebraska.
We have one question in the chat, Tom. It says, could you give examples of materials that are now harder to come by because of supply chain issues?
Sure. So transformers, I would say, is one material. We also, it's an interesting issue, but when we do a power plant maintenance on our power plants every year, we do things like replace the lubricating oil and in our equipment. So in our turbines and generators, for example, and it's been difficult for us to find the lubricating oil with the right characteristics and qualities that we need to update that material in our generation units. And so we've worked our way through that. We've been able to manage that, but those kinds of special lubricating products has been an area that has been harder to find. And that impacts a lot of industries, not just us. We do a lot of machining. We have a great capability in our staff. We have a very talented staff, so we're able to machine and make spare parts for our generating units. That really helps us manage supply chain issues. So we don't necessarily have to rely on outside suppliers for all those parts. We have alternatives that we can use with our internal staff in some cases.
Tom, another question just came in. Will the increasing demand for power slow down the move away from coal generation?
Yes, so I think that answer is a little bit dependent upon the specific situation of the particular utility. In our case at NPPD, we have a surplus generation mix, so we have a little more generation than we need to serve our load and provide for reserves. So as we look to the future and look at our future generation resource needs, that is a really important part of the discussion, is to ensure that we have the right mix of resources to reliably serve our load into the future. So in our case, it's not as an immediate issue as it might be for some other utilities across the nation where their load's already grown to the point where they're adding additional resources. We certainly value at NPPD a diverse resource mix. We believe having coal, nuclear, hydro, solar, wind, natural gas helps us manage risk, helps us keep our costs low. I don't know that that increasing demand in load growth will change our overall trajectory over time. We'll continue to assess all of our resources. We'll look over time. As you know, our board has established a goal to reduce our carbon emissions over time. But that goal is contingent upon and dependent upon two very important pieces. And one is that we maintain affordability, and one is that we maintain reliability. So if we get to a situation where retiring a resource would impact reliability, that would certainly slow that decision to retire a resource. again, that's a ways off for us. That's a different discussion than you might hear from other utilities. Their particular situations are different. But certainly when we make decisions about resources, whether it's coal, nuclear, gas, or whatever it is, the impact on cost and reliability is a very important consideration. And the things that would slow it down is things that would be our ability to maintain reliable service. Without that resource would actually slow down the retirement of that resource or our ability to maintain affordable service. Hope that answered your question. If it didn't, ask again.
There was a follow-up to that question then. It's a little bit different. And then maybe this might be more a conversation about AMIs and that technology, but it says, do you see using smart grid technology to more closely control customers' uses of power, reaching question mark, and then reaching into their smart thermostats question mark?
So I see, as we look into the future, doing those kinds of things with our customers, in partnership with our customers to help them better manage their energy usage, to help us provide opportunities for them to get more value out of the energy we provide. Yeah, the simple answer is yes, technology will allow us, working with our customers, to do those kinds of things, but it's a two-way street. It provides them value because it impacts their costs for energy in a positive way, and it provides all of us value because it helps us better manage investments for new grid items, like new distribution or transmission potentially, or new generation, so that it can be a real win-win if done properly. So yeah, I see that happening as we move more and more into the future. And in some levels, we're doing that today on a more of a macro scale with how we work with our customers to send signals for irrigation load control in the summer months.
To build on your point there, Tom, that with the smart thermostat thing, it wouldn't be us controlling people's thermostats. It's really us providing opportunities, whether it's through our energy wise incentives or through energy efficiency information, to allow them to do that stuff. It's not us specifically turning their thermostat up or down,
No.
which so
yeah, that's the point I was trying to make. It's an opportunity for us to provide opportunities for them to make decisions about how and when they use energy in their homes or businesses that is beneficial to them as well as beneficial to us. We're not doing it to them. We're working with them to give them more choice and opportunity on how they manage the resources they use. Thank you for the clarification, Grant.
Yeah. Talking about coal specifically, Tom, I don't know if you want to mention GGS has a big anniversary coming up.
Certainly. So Gerald Gentleman Station Unit 2 turns 40 years old this year. Gerald Gentleman Station Unit 1 turned 40 years old a couple years ago. So our board meeting this next week will be out in North Platte, Nebraska. And we will be spending some time at Gerald Gentleman Station with the team, celebrating this significant milestone. It's 40 years of safe, reliable, affordable, low-cost operation of a very important generating unit to the people of Nebraska, and it's going to be fun, and it's great to recognize the team for the work they've done out there to ensure that the people we serve and the people in Nebraska have affordable, reliable electricity.
Otherwise, again, thank you for tuning in. I'll have if you need a recording of this, I know a lot of you are probably recording or doing some of that stuff on your own here. If you need the recording, we're recording this as well. So please reach out to my email, and I will get you a copy of that as quickly as I can if you need that. So just let me know. You guys should have my email from this initial invite. Can you address what utilities are doing to address solar installers who are starting utility costs or escalating and installing solar panels that don't follow local regulations?
So what we're doing with our customers is we're trying to make sure, using social media and other channels, to get out to the end use customers that are maybe considering solar, facts about solar installations, and really encouraging them to talk with their local power supplier. A lot of our customers are actually, our wholesale customers are actually the power supplier for the end users, and that's who those end users that are considering solar, they should be talking to their local power supplier, whether it's one of the rural power districts we serve, one of the municipalities we serve, or NPPD in one of our retail communities. We can certainly ensure that you have facts about what solar looks like, and so you can make an informed decision on whether that's the right thing for you to do for your home or business. We just want to make sure that people clearly understand the facts and what it takes to interconnect those facilities. So they're making an informed decision when they decide whether or not to work with an installer to do that.
We had a big celebration a couple weeks ago for the Norfolk Community Solar. That was the biggest in the state so far. So that was a big solar accomplishment as well recently.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. In our retail business, for the retail communities we serve, solar on the home is not necessarily easy for everyone to do because they have trees or the roof is oriented the wrong way. So we've been really focused working with our communities that are interested in doing retail community solar projects where we can build a project that's more utility scale and then sell shares of that project, so to speak, to the customers in that community that are interested in having solar as part of their resource mix. And it's been very successful. As Grant mentioned 2 weeks ago, we had the ribbon cutting in Norfolk for the largest community solar project in the state. That also included a battery, so we're piloting battery storage with that as well. And it's a great partnership with the community of Norfolk, and we're looking forward to learning and doing that in more locations around the state.
All right. Well, we're at just about 10 o'clock here, and I don't see any more questions. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Tom, thanks for taking the time to talk about some of this stuff. If anything, we hope this was educational for you guys. I know this is a topic that has been of interest to some people too, and it's good to share some of this information out. Tom, anything else you want to add?
No, just thanks again. It's great. It's great seeing you all virtually, or at least seeing your little faces virtually. I appreciate your interest in listening to what we have to say and sharing information about what's going on in our industry. You've been very helpful in emergencies when we've had to deal with emergency situations and asked a lot of good questions. And today's kind of more of a normal business day, but it's a good time to kind of update you on what's going on and appreciate your participation. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And again, if you want a recording, please reach out to me. I'll do my best to get that to you as soon as I can, and have a great weekend. Stay cool.
Take care, everybody.